Was ist los? It's your German boy, and welcome back to Planetarian. Now, the last episode was kind of a pilot. We got to learn a bit of the backstory of the world we're in. Like, there was a big war, and now there's killer mechs all over the place, and acid rain everywhere. A lot of shit's dead, but somehow humanity's still soldiering on. And in the midst of all this, we're just going about our business, looking for scrap metal, and we run into this android girl, who seems completely oblivious to what happened to the world outside, but it's offering some cute moments. Now, where we last left off, she was rattling off some of her technical specifications, so let's just let her finish that, shall we? I let out a sigh as I was confronted by this unending monologue. I had lost my gloves, so my skin had been exposed to the open air for several days. My hands up to my wrists ached as if they had been pierced by needles, no thanks to the fact that I had been out in the rain for so long. There was a single cigarette left in the waterproof case in my breast pocket. It was the last of the pack I bartered 24 clusters of fuel cells for at a trading post half a year ago. Damn, you make those things last longer than I do. Kind of impressed. As soon as I took the case out, I was struck by a terrible feeling. Oh no. The front clasp was undone and rusty brown drops of water were leaking out. God damn it! I involuntarily buried my head in my hands. A moment of silence for the cigarette. Okay, let's go. And just like that, I looked up at the ceiling. Today's work had been a complete waste from the very outset. First, I fought with 3 other junkers over the right to use the only safe way into this godforsaken place. Although I somehow managed to win, I used up half my already meager supply of ammunition doing so. Then, after breaking through the quarantine wall, I ran into an entire platoon of Menschenjägers. Thanks to them, I ended up creeping, twisting, and turning inside a maze of rubble and mud for half a day. By the time I'd caused 3 of them to run aground and incapacitated the 4th, I had no more ammunition for my PDW. Only 3 cartridges left for my grenade launcher, and I'd totally lost my case of rations. As I surveyed the state of the city, my disappointment soared. The stores and the air raid shelters along the quarantine wall had already been broken into, and there was nothing of value to be found in those places any longer. I should have been looking to escape right around that point. But instead, I proceeded deeper in. Beyond the gray curtain of rain, an old and somehow familiar-looking skyscraper stood erect against the wind like some sort of magical tower. Using that building as a landmark, I penetrated into the very heart of the city. I still had some obstinacy in me and some impatience as well. But things like that were not what drove me forward. I was probably just sick and tired of everything, honestly. Of these miniature garden-like ruins with no one in them, of the rains that never stopped falling, of this ashen world that had been stripped of its natural order by the machinations of mankind.
お客様? お客様?
I raised my head only to find her childlike face at point-blank range. She cocked her head uneasily, probably wondering why I hadn't replied to her yet.
もしかして、お体の具合がよろしくないのでしょうか? お命に関わるような容体なのでしょうか? 私単体では対処できない事態です。とても困りました。
She said these things without a trace of world-weary cynicism or sentimentality.
お客様? 当デパートの医務室に連絡を取ってもよろしいでしょうか? お客様? お客様? お客様?
Shut up, I'm not a customer, nor am I sick. The angry words that I shouted were awe-inspiringly ridiculous as they echoed off the ceiling.
そうですか。 お元気そうで何よりです。
Appreciate your concern. The smile on that robot's face appeared again as if from out of nowhere.
実は以前にも投影中にお客様の具合が悪くなったことがありまして、それ以来当館におきましては常に万全の救護体制を。
I am not a customer, and I have no interest whatsoever in your conversation or this establishment.
はい、そうなんですか。
She cocked her head slightly again, as if she'd understood my true intentions.
やはりもうプラネタリウムは流行遅れなのでしょうか。
The oil on water-like iridescent reflection coming from her open eyes was due to the optical resin used to make them. In the moment that those eyes focused on something, I could see her eyelashes moving and her eyelashes flittering.
恥を忍んで申しますと、最近はお客様がめっきり少なくなってしまって、館長さんはわざわざ外出しなくてもいい娯楽がたくさんあるからだとおっしゃるんですが、私がこちらで働き始めた当初はたくさんのお客様に詰めかけていただいたんですが。
She anxiously fluttered her eyelashes and gave a long sigh.
最近ではコンパニオンロボットも珍しいものではありませんし、私よりも性能のいい次世代機種が各社から続々と発表されていますし。
Good God, she just continued carrying on and on and on.
申し訳ありません。このところお客様が少なくてつい口をこぼしてしまいました。それではあと7分ほどで投影開始となりますので、そろそろ席にお座りになってお待ちください。
I'm repeating myself here, but I'm not a customer.
はい、そうなんですか。でもお忙しいこととは思うのですが、せっかくお越しいただいたのですから、これも何かのご縁ということで、ぜひ投影をご覧になっていってください。
Shut up.
ちなみに投影時間はほんの45分ほどですので。
Look, just shut up, okay?
それから失礼ですが、投影中のおタバコは。
Shut up. Don't open your mouth. I am begging you. Please just be quiet.
はい、承知しました。
She finally shut her mouth, albeit with a very reluctant air. Dealing with another Arschloch. Were all robots like this? I had never before heard that men as a pre-war were engaged in such frivolous hobbies.
お客様、静かにする前に私からも一つだけお願いがあるのですが。
The silence had not lasted for even 10 seconds.
お客様はちょうど249万7290番目のお客様なのですが、差し支えなければぜひ当館来客者数250万人記念の特別投影をご覧いただきたいのですが、いかがでしょう。
Thus did I completely lose. My body was as sluggish as mud, so I wished to avoid a foolish debate over a matter like this more than anything. I didn't know what she was going to show me, but it couldn't be anything worse than this chaotic hell I was already in. Do whatever you want.
ありがとうございます。
She bowed deeply. And then, gazing at me with upturned eyes, she smiled shyly.
それではどうぞお好きな席にお座りください。
That was the first halfway decent proposal I had heard from her so far. I first put down my backpack, then I took off my waterproof cloak. The military-issue cloak pattern with urban camo and proofed against infrared radiation had become so soaked with muddy wassers that it was heavy as an iron plate.
それでは投影の準備をいたしますので、そのまましばらくお待ちください。
She bowed lightly and then cheerfully headed into the interior of the dome. Wait a second. In the seconds that I called out to her, she came to an immediate halt as if she anticipated it.
はい、何かご用でしょうか？
What are you going to be showing me? A holovid?
星空です。
The starry sky?
はい、星空です。
She answered succinctly, for once.
それでは投影開始まで今しばらくお待ちください。
The starry sky. I could not begin to guess how and where she was broken for her to be saying such crazy words. I inspected the seat of a chair and then cautiously sat down. A white cloud of dust erupted along with a rusty creaking sound. As I leaned back in the chair, it angled back profoundly as well. I flipped up the waterproof lid of my wristwatch in order to take note of the time. However, the hands of the watch were not moving. Thanks to my battle with Dimension Jaegers, I'd forgotten to wind the mechanism. Oh well, it was unavoidable. At the very least, I knew that it was already well past sunset. Although I wasn't happy about it, it would probably be best to spend the night here. I laid out my equipment to dry. I pried open my backpack with both hands and then took out the contents. My backup cloak, my mobile water purification system, and the antibiotic ampoule and syringe I carried around for peace of mind had all become completely soaked. I had 3 packages of hard biscuits as rations, and as I already knew, I had no more magazines for my PDW. After I had spread my equipment onto the chairs around me to dry, and just as I was lamenting the fact that my last cigarette had gotten soaked, she reappeared. With steps so precise as they could be measured with a ruler, she walked with composure through the aisle between the chairs. It seems that the program was now going to begin. Somehow. She turned to me and bowed respectfully.
本日は花火師デパート本店屋上プラネタリウム館にようこそお越しくださいました。私は当館解説員の星野夢美と申します。投影を始めます前に簡単な注意事項をお伝えします。ドーム内では大変よく音が響きます。投影中の死後は他のお客様のご迷惑となりますのでお控えください。大変お手数ですが、携帯電話、時計のアラームなどはあらかじめお切りください。また、投影中の
Judging from the way she was making her announcements, she seemed to possess a voice amplification function as well. That clear carrying voice that would probably reach every last chair in this place. That tone without falter or hesitation, and that brilliant smile. If she were not a robot, there would probably be no way she could address the entire audience at once in such fashion. She continued her verbose explanations about not standing up in the middle of the projection and the emergency procedures in case of an earthquake or fire. One would get the impression that viewing the stars involved some extremely complex legal process by hearing her go on and on. However, I paid no attention at all as I idly played with my wet cigarette. And then the tone of her voice brightened completely.
それでは最後に皆様を星の世界へお誘いする大切なパートナーを紹介します。盛大な拍手でお迎えください。イエナさんです。
I thought my heart was gonna pound out of my chest. I hurriedly grabbed my grenade launcher and flicked off the safety. Who? From which door? But there was no indication of anyone appearing.
実はイエナさんというのはこの大きな機械の名前なんですね。
With a slow, easy tone, she arrived at the punchline of her joke. She then leaned forward and looked over at the one customer she had. Behind her was only that thing shaped like a giant leaning iron dumbbell.
お客様、ここは笑うところなので。
You thought I would laugh? No, rather...
はい、たくさんのお客様がこのくだりでお笑いになります。
Cut out all this unnecessary junk and just start already.
ありがとうございます。そんなに楽しみにしていただけるととてもやりがいがあります。
Who said that I was anticipating it?
それではイエナさんから皆様にお近づきのご挨拶を。
It seemed as if she'd been specifically constructed to block out anything that might be disagreeable to her. She gestured with her right hand toward the machine behind her, making sure that her customer's attention was on her. But nothing happened.
少々お待ちください。では改めてイエナさんから皆様にお近づきのご挨拶を。
But there was not the slightest movement from the machine. There was only an awkward silence.
お客様、
Weren't you going to show me the stars? I thought she had at least gone speechless at my question.
申し訳ありません。本当に申し訳ありません。
But then she involuntarily spouted yet another endless flood of apologies.
恥を忍んで申し上げますと、どうやらただいま投影機に深刻な故障が生じているようです。 本当に申し訳ありません。常日頃のメンテナンスは万全に行っているはずなのですが、ただいま館長さんもスタッフの皆さんもご旅行に出かけていて、私単体では状況を把握できません。
I involuntarily looked towards the sky. No. The rain was continuing to fall. From beyond the curtain woven by the falling drops of rain, my freezing cold ears picked up distant echoes. 1 block away, a hedgehog bee in stealth mode was lying in wait for prey to come within range. These were the murmurs of a god of death. No human being could hope to bring down a hedgehog bee with handheld weaponry. I saw an entire company of heroic infantrymen annihilated for the sake of destroying a single one of those tanks during a strike against the southern hives in the waning stages of the final human counteroffensive. Some of those killed were young boys barely older than 10 years of age. They were orphans who, after the destruction of their colonies, had united with only the clothes on their backs to fight in order to release humanity from the fates that it had created for itself. Their eyes gleamed at the sight of the assault rifles they had been issued and the synthetic chocolate in their ration pockets. Inside the APC takings of the battlefields, they spoke bravely of winning the war and returning the world to the way it had been. Yet at the same time, even their fingers were trembling with fear. In the end, every part of them, from their severed limbs to their dog tags blackened by napalm to the melted barrels of their heat-warped assault rifles, lay cooling in the falling rain. As if one did not squeeze into some crevice in the rubble before being detected by the sensors. As I lay face up and made cautiously to move my body, I realized that there was no mud on the ground. That's when I snapped awake. I was slumped over in the middle of a row of chairs. There was a slightly moist atmosphere, the scent of old machine oil mixed with mold and dust, and the quiet sound of the air conditioning. What confronted me overhead was not the gray sky, but an arched ceiling illuminated by concealed lights. The rain was probably continuing to fall beyond that ceiling. I raised my head and surveyed my surroundings. That dark metal sphere, riddled with innumerable holes, was staring expressionlessly in my direction. It would seem that I was so exhausted last night that I just fell asleep right where I was. I moved my wrist slightly. It had truly been a long time since I had last woken up in a dry room. As I then moved my gaze down to my stomach, I realized that there was something on top of it. Whoa! I brushed it off in confusion. I reflexively grabbed my grenade launcher and then realized what it was. It was the bouquet the robot had made and that I'd thrown away yesterday. This sucks. I sat up in my seat and looked around. The figure is the one who had given me the bouquet. The robot was nowhere to be seen. Had she broken down to the point that she no longer moved, or was she still loitering in the vicinity? You know, I think I'm gonna leave it off here. We got some more done, and I want to save the rest for the next one. So, till then, this has been your German boy. Auf Wiedersehen.